Welcome to Unadulterated Adultery Confessions channel that we hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching it. I never planned for any of it to happen. If someone had told me 8 years ago, on the day I said I'd do that, I would one day betray those vows, I would have laughed in their face. But here I am standing at the edge of a decision that has already been made, drowning in the weight of a love I never saw coming. My marriage was supposed to be my safe haven, but somewhere along the way it became a prison and he became my escape. My neighbor, a man 26 years older than me, a man who saw me in ways my husband never did. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want to tell my story years. That's how long I had been married to Daniel. And yet most days I felt like a ghost in my own home. Our house was beautiful, pristine, spacious and well decorated. Picture-perfect life from the outside. But inside there was a silence so heavy it felt suffocating. We used to talk, laugh, touch. Now we barely acknowledge each other. Mornings were the worst. Before this story spirals even further, make sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications for more. And when the story ends, don't forget to show your support through likes and comments. He would wake up before me, get dressed in complete silence and disappear into his routine like I wasn't even there. No kiss, no good morning, just the sound of his footsteps fading away as he left for work. I sat at the kitchen table stirring my coffee, absent-minded, staring at the empty chair across from me. 8 years of this. How had I let it get this bad? A deep sigh left my lips as I stood up, my silk robe slipping off my shoulder slightly. I pulled it back, suddenly aware of the large window facing our backyard. That's when I saw him. Mr. William. He was sitting on his porch, a book in one hand, a glass of whiskey in the other. 66, but something about him was effortlessly commanding. He wasn't just an old man. He carried himself with a quiet confidence of someone who had lived, who had seen and done things he never spoke about. Eyes met. I should have looked away. I should have pretended I didn't notice him watching me, but I didn't. I held his gaze, my fingers tightening around my coffee mug. His lips curved into a small knowing smirk and my stomach flipped. It wasn't just polite, neighborly eye contact. It was something else, something dangerous. The moment stretched thick and charged until I finally turned away, my breath unsteady. I shouldn't have felt that, I shouldn't have liked it. But as I walked back to my bedroom, the empty space in my bed feeling larger than ever, I knew something had shifted and I wasn't sure I wanted to stop it. The first time William spoke to me, really spoke to me, it was as if he had been waiting for the moment just as much as I had. I had spent the past few days pretending not to notice him, pretending that I wasn't deliberately stepping outside when I knew he'd be in his garden, that I wasn't lingering at the mailbox longer than necessary, just to catch a glimpse of him. But that evening I wasn't pretending anymore. The sky had turned a soft shade of orange, the last traces of sunlight stretching lazily across the rooftops. I stood by the front porch, arms crossed over my C*******T, staring at nothing. In particular, my house behind me felt like a prison, cold, uninviting. My husband was inside, but even if he weren't, it wouldn't have made much of a difference. And then there he was. William stood just outside his house, watering his plants with a slow, methodical rhythm. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong forearms, the kind that belonged to a man who had lived, a man who had built things, carried things, held things with purpose. I should have gone inside. I should have walked away before he looked up, but I didn't. Instead, I tilted my head slightly, letting the warm breeze lift my hair as I exhaled. It was calculated, just subtle enough to be noticed, but not enough to be obvious, and it worked. His eyes met mine, deep, unreadable, but there was something beneath the surface, something I had been searching for. Escaping the silence, he asked, his voice smooth, rich with experience. A slow smile curved my lips. You could say that. He set the hose down, wiping his hands on a cloth tucked into his waistband. His movements were unhurried, like a man who didn't rush for anything or anyone. Silence can be deafening. Sometimes he murmured, stepping closer to the edge of his yard, almost like a reminder of what's missing. The weight of his words settled between us. He knew, he could see it, how empty I had become. I swallowed, looking down for a moment before meeting his gaze again. And what about you? Do you ever try to escape? His lips twitch as if I had amused him. I stopped running a long time ago. Something about that answer sent a shiver down my spine for a long moment. Neither of us spoke. The air between us was charged, humming with something unsaid. I should have ended the conversation there. I should have gone inside and pretended this never happened. But instead I took a step forward and so did he. And just like that, the first line had been crossed. I should have walked away. I should have turned back, locked myself inside my house and forgotten the way. William looked at me, but I didn't. Instead, I stood there the night, settling around us thick with heat and something else, something dangerous. William didn't move any closer, but he didn't step back either. He simply watched me, his eyes steady, as if he were waiting to see what I would do next. And that was the thing about him. He never rushed, never pushed. He only waited, and somehow that made me want him even more. I swallowed, forcing a small smile. I should probably head inside. Probably, he agreed, but there was amusement in his voice, like he knew I wasn't going anywhere just yet. The breeze lifted my hair, brushing it against my bare shoulders. I suddenly became aware of how exposed I was, the thin straps of my dress, the way the fabric clung to my body. His gaze flickered just for a second, but I caught it, my pulse quickened. Are you always this observant? Asked softly. William exhaled a quiet laugh, only when there's something worth noticing, but it wasn't fair the way his voice affected me. Low, deliberate, like every word was meant to linger in the air between us. I took a slow step forward, just enough to test the space between us to see if he would move. He didn't. Be careful. He murmured. Of what? His jaw tightened slightly as if he were battling something inside himself. Lines, he said. Finally, they blur easily. I should have been the one to say that. I should have been the one, reminding him that this, whatever this was a bad idea. Instead, I tilted my head. Maybe some lines are meant to be crossed for the first time. I saw it, the break in his control. His C****** T rose with a slow inhale, his fingers twitching at his sides. If I had reached out just slightly, I could have touched him, and I wanted to. I wanted to feel the warmth of his skin, the roughness of his hands. I wanted to know what it would be like if he stopped holding back. But then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the moment was gone. William took a step back, putting distance between us. His voice was steady, but his eyes, they were burning. You should go inside, he said. It wasn't a command, it wasn't even a warning. It was a challenge. And as I turned to leave, I knew one thing for certain: this wasn't over, not even close. I told myself I wouldn't go to him again. I lasted 2 days of lying next to my husband, staring at the ceiling, feeling nothing, 2 days of trying to convince myself that what happened on William Porch was just a fleeting moment, a slip in judgment. But the truth. I wanted to slip again. So when I stepped outside that evening, pretending it was just for some air, I wasn't surprised to see him there, leaning against the railing of his porch, a cigarette between his fingers, watching me like he knew exactly why I had come the moment our eyes met. Something in my C***** T tightened. I took a slow step forward, then another. The grass was damp beneath my bare feet, the night air thick with humidity. I wasn't wearing much, just a thin night dress that clung to my body, the fabric whispering against my skin. As I moved, William's jaw tensed. He didn't look away, but he didn't move either. I reached his porch steps, gripping the railing as I tilted my head, watching him. You always stare like that, I murmured. He exhaled slowly, a curl of smoke slipping from his lips. You always make it hard. Not to the words sent a slow burn through my body. I took the cigarette from his fingers, bringing it to my lips, not because I wanted to smoke, but because I wanted to taste him in some indirect, dangerous way. His eyes darkened. Are we really doing this? His voice was rough and strained. I exhaled, watching the smoke curl between us. I think we already are. He reached for the cigarette, but I pulled my hand back, keeping it just out of reach. Test challenge. He took a slow step forward, closing the distance between us. The wood beneath us creaked the sound, sending a shiver up my spine. I knew he could see it, the way my breath hitched, the way my fingers trembled slightly as I held onto that stupid cigarette, like it was the only thing tethering me to control. And then he took it from me, not roughly, not forcefully, just with the slow, deliberate confidence of a man who knew exactly what he was doing to me. His fingers brushed mine just for a second. It was the lightest touch, barely anything, but it unraveled me. I let out a shaky breath, my heart slamming against my ribs. His voice was low when he spoke. Go inside. Sweetheart. A shiver ran through me, not because of the words, because of the way he said them. Rough, like he was barely holding himself back, like he was warning himself just as much as he was warning me. I swallowed hard, my pulse pounding in my ears, but I didn't move and neither did he. I should have turned around, I should have gone inside, but I didn't. I stayed rooted to the spot, staring up at him, my heart slamming against my ribs. The way William looked at me wasn't soft, wasn't tender. It was raw, burning, dangerous, the kind of look that made my knees weak and my breath unsteady. He exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening as if he were at war with himself. You know what you're doing, he said, his voice low and rough. I swallowed. Do I? His eyes darkened. Don't play with me, sweetheart, I'm not playing. That was all. It took 1 second. He was standing, still holding himself back. The next he was in front of me, his hand gripping, my jaw tilting, my face up to his. You want this? His breath was warm against my lips. His voice, thick, was something that sent a sharp ache between my legs. I nodded, but it wasn't enough. Say it. He demanded, his fingers tightening just slightly. I want you. I breathed, my pulse hammering the second. The words left my mouth. His lips crashed against mine, fierce and consuming. I gasped into his mouth, my hands gripping the front of his shirt as he backed me up against the porch railing. The hardwood pressed into my spine, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered except the way his body pressed into mine. The heat of him, the hunger in his kiss. His hands moved down, gripping my SS, pulling me flush against him. I whimpered at the feel of him, hard and yielding. You've been teasing me for days. He growled against my lips, driving me insane. I shivered, and now his grip tightened. Now I'm done holding back. Before I could process what was happening, he lifted me effortlessly into his arms. My legs wrapped around his waist on instinct as he carried me inside the door, slamming shut behind us. I barely had a second to take in my surroundings before he pressed me against the wall, his lips trailing down my neck, his teeth grazing my skin. I gasped, my fingers tangling in his salt and pepper hair. William, a deep groan, rumbled in his C*******, his hands slid up my thighs, pushing my nightdress higher, his fingers rough and demanding. You have no idea how much I've wanted this. He muttered against my skin, his voice thick with restraint. Then stop holding back. I whispered, arching into him. That was all he needed. His hands tore the dress over my head, leaving me bare in front of him. His eyes darkened as he took me in, his breath coming in sharp, ragged, exhaled. Jesus Christ, he murmured, running a hand down my body, heat pool between my thighs as he dragged me toward his bedroom, his grip unrelenting. When my back hit the mattress, he was on me in an instant, his mouth claiming every inch of me, his hands learning every curve. He was rough but not callous, dominant but not unkind. He took his time, savoring every reaction he pulled from me, watching me unravel beneath him. And when he finally sank into me, it wasn't just physical, it was something deeper, something I couldn't name. I gasped, my nails digging into his back, my body arching into him. Look at me, he demanded, his voice thick with need. I met his gaze, and what I saw there made my breath hitch. Possession, hunger, something deeper. He moved slowly at first, letting me adjust, but as I clung to him, urging him on, he lost his restraint. His pace became punishing, his grip bruising, his name falling from my lips in desperate, breathless cries. I had never felt anything like this, never been wanted like this, never needed like this. When release finally crashed over me, it was overwhelming, leaving me shaking in his arms. William followed moments later, groaning my name against my lips before collapsing beside me, his body still pressed to mine for a long time. We lay there, our breaths mingling, our skin slick with sweat. I should have felt guilty. I should have regretted everything. But as he reached over, brushing his fingers along my jaw, his eyes dark and unreadable, I knew one thing for certain: this wasn't over. It was only the beginning. Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel.